Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this video lesson on secondary source analysis. I am Miss Jennifer Blank, and I will be your guide on this journey. So first off, let's talk about some vocab. So to a historian, a document is someone's attempt to document something, all right? Doesn't necessarily have to be something written. It could be a piece of pottery, it could be a painting, it could be a mural or a mosaic or a sculpture, anything visual, anything that is recording something or documenting something that has happened in the past. Now, historiography is an important word to know. It's an important piece of academic vocabulary, especially for secondary sources. All right. Basically, the basic definition is it's a summary of historical scholarship about a topic. So it's the sum total of everything that historians have written about a topic. So you'll see things like Civil War historiography or World War II historiography. That means that that's a summary of everything that's been written by historians about that topic. So this definition I got from Temple University, and it's usually broken down into schools of thought. So like I said, Civil War historiography, and within there would be the pro-slavery, the apologist viewpoint. There would be the revisionist school of thought. You also have an examination of all aspects of historical scholarship, including especially the writing of history, the methods of historical research, and or a single scholarly work or body of historical literature. If you would like to take a look at that source directly, there's a lot of good information at this website located right here. If you Google secondary source analysis and type Temple, this link should pop up. So feel free to check that out to get some more detailed information. Also, we need to understand the difference between primary and secondary sources. Now, primary source is something that comes from the time period under study. All right, it's otherwise known as sometimes called an eyewitness account. Somebody who directly experienced whatever it is that they're documenting. A secondary source is a historian. All right, it's not a textbook. Your textbook is not a secondary source. I don't care what they tell you. I don't care who tells you that. That is total BS. That's crap. No. A textbook is a tertiary source. It is 3 times removed. They use the work of historians to develop their content. All right. So a secondary source is by a historian, or it's produced using primary sources. All right. And they use those documents and sources to determine information, facts, and viewpoints about an event or person or place in history. All right, so steps for analyzing and evaluating secondary sources. Now, this website's also really good. You can check this out. It's University of Kentucky, so feel free to go check out that site. That's a good resource. When you're looking at secondary sources, you need to look at the structure of the work. How do they organize it? You need to look at their thesis. That is the most important thing. What is it that they are arguing? You need to look at the sub-arguments they present that support that thesis, and you need to look at the sources they use. Are they using mostly secondary sources? Are they using a mix? What types of sources are they using? Are those sources valid, and are they credible? Are they reliable? And you need to look at the motives for producing this source, and we're going to talk about the motives, additional motives in a little bit. Now, again, this is from the same site as the previous slide. These are some possible motives that historians have for producing their secondary sources. Sometimes they're also called monographs. First, it might be the first interpretation of a historical issue. Maybe the subject has never been broached by a historian, so it's the first analysis of a historical topic by a historian. Maybe there are gaps or deficiencies in the scholarship on a particular area or topic, and this book is designed to fill that gap or fill that deficiency. Maybe there's a popular or commonplace interpretation of a topic that needs a more accurate interpretation, right? Maybe this is the accepted historical view, but new evidence has come to light, or the evidence has been reviewed by later historians in a new light, and so now this calls for a new interpretation. Existing scholarship of the topic is perhaps too simplistic. It hasn't been evaluated or analyzed deeply enough. A debate on a particular topic yields an additional perspective, and that perspective needs to be explored. It hasn't been explored yet. A debate on a topic needs to change. Maybe people are asking the wrong questions about a given time period or a historical topic, or they're viewing this issue in an inappropriate way. A case study of a general historical argument or a principle. So these concrete historical ideas about that carry throughout various topics. Maybe that case study reinforces the principle, results in it needing to be modified, or maybe it just completely throws it out the window. Maybe it disproves it completely. And then there's test cases of broad interpretations of large or complex topics that would need a one portion of that argument to be explored. Results of that test case, again, might reinforce that original interpretation, might modify it, or they might completely disprove it. Again, if you want some more details on this, please feel free to check out that website that's up there. It's quite good. All right, now we're going to practice. So we've gotten some big picture stuff about what secondary sources are and what you should look for. If you need to rewind the video and review or go back and take some notes, that's fine. You can pause the video or rewind it and do that. But right now, I'm going to introduce you to a secondary source that is public domain. All right, so this is called The Making of the Catholic Encyclopedia. It was produced in 1917. Just for your knowledge, any document or anything that was produced 95 years or more more ago, that it means it's public domain. You can use it as you wish. You don't need to worry about copyright stuff. So this is an excerpt from the Catholic Encyclopedia, The Making of the Catholic Encyclopedia. This is considered a secondary source. The need of a Catholic encyclopedia in English was manifest for many years before it was decided to publish one. Editors of various general encyclopedias had attempted to make them satisfactory from a Catholic point of view, but without success, partly because they could not afford the space, but chiefly because in matters of dispute, their contributors were too often permitted to be partial, if not erroneous, in their statements. Now, I want you to just pause and think about this, right? So, erroneous, partial, those words, I want you to think about what those words mean. What are the authors or the author of this, what are they implying about other encyclopedias that were non-Catholic, secular encyclopedias? It differs from the general encyclopedia in omitting facts and information which have no relation to the church. On the other hand, it is not exclusively a church encyclopedia, nor is it limited to the ecclesiastical sciences and the doings of churchmen. It records all that Catholics have done, not only in behalf of charity and morals, but also for the intellectual and artistic development of mankind. It chronicles what Catholic artists, educators, poets, scientists, and men of action have achieved in their several provinces. In this respect, it differs from most other Catholic encyclopedias. The editors are fully aware that there is no specifically Catholic science, that mathematics, chemistry, physiology, and other branches of human knowledge are neither Catholic, Jewish, nor Protestant. But when it is commonly asserted that Catholic principles are an obstacle to scientific research, it seems not only proper, but needful to register what and how much Catholics have contributed to every department of knowledge. Again, I want you guys to pay attention to the language that is used here. All right, really focus in on that. The work was intended to show not only the inner life of the church in organization, teaching, and practice, but also the manifold and far-reaching influence of Catholicism upon all that most deeply concerns mankind. Hence, the introduction of many titles which are not specifically Catholic or even religious in the stricter sense, but under which some interest of the church or some phase of its activity is recorded. Such are the accounts given of different religions and sects, of countries and states, of literatures and philosophies, of institutions and individuals that have been extraneous or even antagonistic to the church. Special care, of course, was taken to include those subjects which are often treated in a way that gives false or inaccurate impressions regarding the Catholic position or the facts of history. Even where the same subject would naturally recur under different titles, it was, if sufficiently important, allotted a separate article. On the other hand, to avoid needless repetition, it was often found necessary to introduce the subject in alphabetical order with a cross-reference to the article in which, under a different title, it would be more appropriately treated. Finally, as no other extensive work of reference would be available to a large number of the purchasers of the encyclopedia, due provision was made for supplying in every instance such general information as the ordinary reader might reasonably expect to find in connection with the subjects treated. Now, that is a mouthful, right? That's wow, like that's a lot of stuff. Now, you can feel free to go back and look at that. You can pause the video and read it yourself. You don't have to listen to my diatribe. You can fast forward. But now that you've been exposed to the source, you need to think about these questions. What is the structure of the work? How is the work set up? What's the thesis? What's the argument? What are the sub-arguments? What sources are used? What are the motives of the authors or editors? Now, when you look at this, you can see the structure of the work is based on entries, right? The author or authors talks about how there are various entries that can be cross-referenced, right? It's topical and it's in alphabetical order. So if you're looking to understand St. Thomas Aquinas, right, you would look up A for Aquinas, right? And you would go to the A and then you'd find the entry on Thomas Aquinas. Now, he also wrote this work called Summa Theologica, right? Now, you will find a reference to Summa Theologica, this work that he produced during the latter Middle Ages. But Summa Theologica is so important to history that it would have its own entry. So then you'd go to that section of the encyclopedia, click on Summa Theologica, and there would be a separate entry that would discuss that work in detail. So it's important to note the structure of the work so you can figure out how to find what you need. What's the thesis? Effectively, it's that non-Catholic sources of information have not done their due diligence in treating the church appropriately. Basically, they've been biased in how they approach the church. The author uses a terminology similar to that people have said that the church was an enemy of scientific thought, something to that effect. And this is one of the reasons why they're producing this, to show that there were Catholic scientists, right, to dispute this view. Then you need to look at the sub-arguments that the authors lay out. What kinds of sources are used? You need to think about these things. The motive of the authors clearly was, well, clearly, it's debatable, was to reinvigorate the Catholic Church and clear up some ignorance in terms of how people see the Catholic Church and its relationship to academic knowledge and understanding. Evaluation. Now, these are the critical thinking questions, the questions that require deeper thought, much deeper thought. So is this work reliable? Well, that depends on what you're using it for. If you want to understand the experience of Catholics from the Catholic perspective, it's extremely reliable. It's approved by the Catholic Church itself. It's written by Catholics about Catholics. So in that sense, it is reliable. If you're looking for absolute truth about what the Catholic Church did or didn't do in history, well, maybe then it's not so reliable in that sense, but it doesn't mean you still can't use it. You just need to evaluate it for biases, right? Is it credible? Can you trust it? Is it representative? Well, it's not necessarily representative because the authors point out that this is designed for Catholics, by Catholics, about Catholics, right? So it's not representative. They're not including Protestant doctrine unless it really somehow relates to making the Catholic Church effectively portray the Catholic Church in a better light. Is it too old to be useful? How old is it? Has modern scholarship moved past such a view? These are questions you need to ask. Are the sources used to generate this work reliable, credible, authoritative? So you don't just ask about the work itself. Is it reliable, credible, or authoritative? You also have to ask about the sources that the work uses, okay? That's it. I hope you learned what you needed to. I will see you in the next video. And my guys, we will discuss this more in class and actually practice with it. So see you next time.